They smile to your face but roll their eyes behind your back. You go out of your way to show love, empathy, patience. Yet what do you get in return? Criticism, distance, even hate. If you've ever asked, why do they dislike me when I've done nothing but good to them? This message is for you, because the answer is deeper than their attitude. It starts in the spirit. Your kindness, as pure and sincere as it may be, often becomes the very reason why people turn against you. It's one of the most painful and confusing experiences, offering goodness and receiving bitterness. But the reason goes deeper than behavior. It touches something spiritual, emotional, and often hidden beneath the surface. When you are kind, you bring light, and that light exposes things that others are trying to keep buried. Your presence, without even saying a word, can become a mirror for someone else's insecurity. It reveals their jealousy. It reminds them of what they're not doing, and it triggers feelings of inadequacy they thought they had buried. People who have built their identity around pain, competition, or comparison often struggle to be around someone who walks in love, grace, or peace. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because being around you stirs something uncomfortable in them. Your kindness doesn't match the narrative they've built in their mind about people. They've come to believe the world is cruel, so when you show up with empathy, you become a contradiction. And contradictions threaten comfort zones. They found safety in their cynicism. Your hope is unsettling. Your softness feels foreign. And your peace is loud in their chaotic mind. Some may even see your kindness as a performance. They believe no one can truly be that good without a hidden agenda. Why? Because they've been manipulated. They've been used. They've been lied to by people who wore a smile and spoke sweet words. So now, when they see you being kind, their trauma speaks louder than your truth. It tells them, don't trust this. It's fake. It's a trap. And so, their hatred isn't personal, it's protective. They are defending themselves from a pain they haven't healed from. Unfortunately, you just happen to be standing in the line of fire, but it goes even further. Your kindness can also expose people's laziness. When you go out of your way to serve, to love, to support, it makes others look in the mirror. And not everyone wants to do that. They see how self-centered they've become, how disconnected they are from empathy, and instead of learning from you, they judge you. It's easier to call you too much than to admit they're doing too little. It's easier to push you away than to let your example challenge them to grow. And that's where resentment begins. Not because you are unkind, but because you are consistently kind. Because you don't lower yourself to pettiness. Because you respond to hate with peace. And that kind of strength unnerves people. It reminds them that they too have a choice in how they treat others. And they hate being reminded of the power they're not using. So yes, sometimes people hate you even when you're kind. But don't let that stop you. Their reaction is not a reflection of your worth. It's a revelation of their wounds. And you are the light that reminds them healing is possible. Keep shining. Jealousy is a quiet poison. It doesn't always look angry or loud. Sometimes it hides behind forced smiles, passive comments, or silent distance. And often it shows up exactly when you least expect it, when you're being your most authentic, kind, and generous self. That's the strange thing about jealousy. It doesn't get triggered by arrogance or cruelty as much as it does by goodness. When someone sees you doing well, being loved, or walking in confidence without trying to outshine anyone, they may start to feel small in comparison. And instead of dealing with those feelings, they aim their bitterness at you. You didn't cause their jealousy, but your presence exposes it. You didn't ask for the spotlight, but just by walking in truth, you attracted it. And now, some people feel they need to compete with you, even though you're not in competition with anyone. You were just showing up, being kind, helping others, giving love freely. But to someone who lives in a scarcity mindset, who believes love, success, or attention are limited, your shine feels like a threat. They believe there's not enough room for both of you to be appreciated. So instead of celebrating you, they criticize you. Instead of clapping for you, they start whispering behind your back. This kind of jealousy can wear many masks. It can look like sarcasm, gossip, subtle jabs, or distant behavior. Sometimes it even disguises itself as concern. You're too nice, it's not real. Or, why are you always helping everyone? That's not normal. These comments may seem harmless, but they're really seeds of resentment trying to grow, because what they're really saying is, I don't understand how you can be like that, and I hate that it makes me feel less than. That's not your fault, but you become the target anyway. And let's be real, people often envy what they don't have the courage to become. Your peace, your patience, your kindness. It all looks effortless to them, but they don't see the strength it takes to remain gentle in a world that's harsh. They don't know the battles you fought to keep a good heart. All they see is the result, not the resilience behind it. And instead of asking, how did you become this person? They quietly decide, I don't like them. Not because you wronged them, but because your presence challenges their comfort. This is why people hate you even when you're kind. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your light reveals what they lack. Your love reminds them of the love they wish they could give or receive. Your confidence unsettles their insecurity, and so they label you fake, over the top, attention seeking, all just to silence the mirror you've become in their life. But you must never shrink to make others feel safe in their jealousy. Don't dim your light to soothe their discomfort. Your kindness is not a crime, it's a calling. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them hate. Just don't let them stop you. There are environments where kindness doesn't flourish. It threatens. Spaces where toxicity has been normalized, where sarcasm is the language, where love is treated like weakness. In these places, when someone enters with a genuine spirit, a kind heart, and pure intentions, it doesn't bring relief. It brings disruption. Your kindness becomes unsettling. It doesn't align with the patterns they've gotten used to. And instead of being welcomed, you're questioned. Instead of being embraced, you're pushed away. See, in a toxic environment, survival often comes through control, manipulation, or power games. People aren't used to someone giving without expecting, loving without conditions, or listening without judgment. Your presence exposes what's broken. It interrupts the dysfunction that has become their normal. And because they've lived so long in that mindset, your kindness looks suspicious. It doesn't make sense to them. They ask themselves, why are they being so nice? What do they want? Because in their world, kindness is a strategy, not a way of life. And this is why they begin to reject you. Not because you're wrong, but because you're not what they're used to. You challenge their system. When someone is used to chaos, peace feels like a threat. When they're used to being judged, grace feels uncomfortable. You break the rules they've learned to live by. Rules like don't trust anyone, don't show weakness, always protect yourself first. But when you walk in with a heart that serves instead of takes, forgives instead of holds grudges, and uplifts instead of competes, you expose a new way, and not everyone is ready for it. Your kindness doesn't just disrupt individuals, it disrupts the entire culture. People start questioning themselves. Why don't I treat others like that? Why do I always respond with bitterness? And those are dangerous questions for someone who doesn't want to grow. So rather than change, they resist. And that resistance looks like criticism, exclusion, and sometimes even slander. You become the problem, not because you are one, but because your presence challenges what they've settled for. It's important to understand that your kindness carries weight. It carries truth, and truth is never neutral. It either heals or offends. You may not speak a word against them, yet your actions, your integrity, your peace, all speak louder than any sermon. And they make people confront their own choices. People who thrive in toxic energy won't celebrate your difference. They'll fight it. Because as long as you're around, they can't comfortably stay the same. But don't let that stop you. You were not made to blend into dysfunction. You were made to transform atmospheres. And even if they hate you at first, your presence is planting seeds. Seeds of healing, seeds of truth, seeds of light. Some will resist, some will walk away, some will gossip. But a few will be changed forever, simply because you stayed kind in a place that gave you every reason not to be. So keep disrupting the darkness. That's what the light was always meant to do. Some people can't receive your kindness because their hearts have been shaped by pain. It's not that they don't want love. It's that love feels foreign. When you show up with a gentle spirit, with genuine care and sincerity, it brushes against wounds that haven't healed. And instead of welcoming your kindness, they flinch, they withdraw, or worse, they lash out, because to them, kindness is not safe. It reminds them of moments when someone claimed to care and then abandoned them. When someone smiled only to betray them. When affection was used as bait for control. So now, even your purest intentions feel threatening to them. You may say a kind word and they'll question your motives. You offer help and they suspect a hidden agenda. You're consistent in your care and they wonder what you're trying to get from them. This has nothing to do with who you are and everything to do with what they've been through. Their heart has built walls, not out of pride, but out of protection. They've learned the hard way that vulnerability can lead to pain. So they keep everyone at arm's length, even those who come with peace. That's the tragedy of unhealed wounds. They distort perception. You might be the first real example of kindness they've seen in years, but because their inner filter is clouded with hurt, they can't recognize you for what you truly are. You become just another face in the crowd of people they assume will eventually let them down. And rather than take the risk of trusting you, they choose to defend themselves by rejecting you. Sometimes that rejection looks like silence. Other times it looks like sarcasm, coldness, or even cruelty. It's easy to take this personally, to wonder, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. You just stepped into someone's storm and your presence touched their pain. And pain reacts. It protects. It fights, even when there's no threat, because survival has taught it to always stay alert. This is why some people hate you or mistreat you, even when you're kind. Your love doesn't match their reality. Your kindness doesn't make sense in their world. And rather than embrace it, they push it away. Not because you're fake, but because they don't know what real feels like anymore. But here's the powerful thing. Sometimes your kindness plants a seed, even in hard soil. They may reject you now, misunderstand you now, distance themselves now. But your love is not wasted. It stays with them. It speaks when you're gone. It lingers in their memory. And over time, it can soften what pain has hardened. So don't let their rejection stop your kindness. You're not just showing love. You're showing them what love could look like. You're rewriting the story that not all people hurt, not all kindness has strings, and not all care comes with conditions. That's a gift. Even if they can't receive it yet, keep giving it anyway. There's something powerful about walking into a room and carrying a peace that doesn't come from people's approval. When you are kind, centered, and grounded, your very presence speaks. Louder than words, louder than noise. It shifts the atmosphere. It unsettles the insecure. And sometimes it makes people hate you without a clear reason. But there is a reason. Your presence highlights their absence. Your peace reveals their inner chaos. Your kindness reminds them of the compassion they're not offering. Your patience convicts their impatience. You become a living example of everything they are avoiding in themselves. People who haven't taken the time to develop character, integrity, or emotional maturity often find it difficult to be around someone who has. When you show up with a calm spirit, with love that doesn't ask for anything in return, it exposes what they're lacking. They may have the appearance, the influence, the money, but not the peace. And peace, unlike position, cannot be faked. It's either there or it's not. So, when someone sees you operating from a place of wholeness, it disturbs them, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because it reminds them that they're not whole themselves. This is one of the unspoken reasons people push away those who carry light. When you are truly kind, without hidden motives, it creates contrast. It draws a line between who's walking in authenticity and who's just performing. And performance doesn't like to be confronted by authenticity, because now people around you begin to notice the difference. They begin to see what true kindness looks like, what real humility feels like, and that threatens the masks others have been wearing. It's also why people may start whispering behind your back, saying things like, they think they're better than us, or they're too perfect. But you're not claiming superiority. You're just showing consistency. Still, your consistency makes their inconsistency visible. Your strength reveals their fragility. Your joy contrasts with their bitterness. And sometimes, rather than being inspired to grow, people choose the easier route, tearing you down in their minds so they don't have to rise in their character. And it's not always conscious. Some people don't even realize that the reason they feel agitated around you is because you're reminding them of who they could be if they were willing to do the inner work. That's the cost of being someone who carries light. You reflect truth. And truth doesn't always get applause. So when people begin to distance themselves from you or respond to your kindness with coldness, don't let it cause you to question your worth. Recognize what's really happening. Your presence is awakening something in them. And awakening is uncomfortable. But you're not responsible for their reaction. You're responsible for staying true to who you are. Don't shrink back. Don't dim your light. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to show what love looks like, what peace can feel like, and what strength through kindness really is. Let them wrestle with what your presence reveals. That's not your burden to carry. It's their invitation to grow. Kindness is a beautiful gift, but when it's not wrapped in wisdom, it can be misunderstood. Or worse, misused. That's why when you're kind and have boundaries, people often start to get uncomfortable because they expect kindness to mean softness, passivity, or submission. But when you show up with a loving heart and a firm backbone, it confuses them. You're kind, but you say, no. You're generous, but you don't tolerate disrespect. You're patient, but you won't let yourself be walked over. And for some, that's a problem, because they were only comfortable with your kindness when it was convenient for them. The moment you assert a boundary, their perception of you shifts. Now you're too proud. Now you're acting different. But what's really happening is they can no longer control or manipulate the version of you that made them comfortable. They liked you when you were always available, always giving, always accommodating. But when you started honoring your limits, they began to feel offended because your boundaries reminded them that they don't have unlimited access to you anymore. You see, true kindness doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means loving others while still loving yourself. And when you practice that kind of balanced kindness, it intimidates people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. They never expected your kindness to come with self-respect. They expected sacrifice, submission, silence. And when they no longer get those things, they start to turn against you. This is why people start labeling you. You've changed. You're full of yourself. You think you're better than us. No, you haven't changed. You've just grown. You've realized that being kind doesn't mean tolerating abuse. You've discovered that helping others doesn't mean emptying yourself. And you've learned that love without limits turns into exhaustion, bitterness, and burnout. So now, when you draw a line, people who were once happy with you suddenly pull away, and that can be painful. Because you weren't trying to push anyone out. You were just protecting your peace. But for those who were only in your life to take from you, your peace feels like rejection. They don't see your boundary as healthy. They see it as betrayal. But that's not your fault. That's a reflection of their entitlement, not a reflection of your heart. The truth is, not everyone hates your kindness. They hate that they can't use it anymore. They hate that you won't give endlessly, stay quiet, or tolerate disrespect like you used to. They hate that you've become whole. And that wholeness has created a version of you they can no longer control. But don't let their disappointment make you feel guilty. You're not being unkind. You're being wise. You're honoring your soul, your limits, and your growth. And in doing so, you're finally loving yourself the way you've always loved others. So keep being kind, keep being generous, but never again at the expense of your peace, your dignity, or your worth. Boundaries don't make your kindness weaker. They make it real.